Social Distortion are back with their 8th studio album after a 15-year absence, but was it worth the wait? Mike Ness beat cancer, the band took their time, and Born to Kill is finally here. So let's talk about it. Before we get into the album, a quick word on where this band has been, because the backstory matters. I just did a full history video on Social Distortion, which you can find on my channel, or I'll link it at the end screen, so I'm not going to go deep into the full story here, but here is the short version. Born to Kill is the band's first studio album since Hard Times and Nursery Rhymes back in 2011. That's 15 years between records, and a lot happened in that time. Mike Ness actually wanted to start making this album as far back as 2012, but the band kept writing, kept refining, and kept pushing the timeline back. They built up a significant catalog of songs over those years, and the plan was to release something around 2024. Then came the news that nobody wanted to hear. Mike Ness was diagnosed with stage 1 tonsil cancer. He went through treatment, and thankfully he beat it. That's genuinely great news, but it pushed the album back further, and here we are in 2026, finally getting to hear what all those years of work produced. And what does it sound like? Honestly, it sounds like Social Distortion, and I mean that as a compliment. The album is a mix of their different styles across the years. There's the harder punk rock energy of the 1990s self-titled record, there's some straightforward old school punk, and there's a signature cowpunk sound, that distinctive blend of punk rock and country that has always set this band apart from their peers. 11 tracks, 1 cover song, and 1 track featuring a guest appearance from singer-songwriter Lucinda Williams. Let's break it all down. The most important thing this album gets right is that it sounds like a band that still believes in what they're doing. After 15 years away, with everything Mike Ness went through personally and medically, Born to Kill does not sound like an album made out of obligation or nostalgia. It sounds like a band that genuinely had something to say and took their time saying it. Mike Ness himself remains one of the most authentic voices in punk rock. His delivery throughout this album is honest and lived in a way that comes from actually living through the things you're singing about. He's writing about addiction, survival, loss, love, and resilience, and you believe every word because you know this isn't fiction. This is a guy drawing directly from his own experience, and that authenticity is the backbone of everything Social Distortion has ever done well. The variety across this album is another genuine strength. One of the things that has always made Social Distortion interesting is their refusal to be just one thing. They're a punk band, yes, but they're also a country band, a rockabilly band, a roots rock band, and occasionally a straight-up rock and roll band in the classic tradition. All those sides show up on Born to Kill, and the sequencing does a decent job of moving between them without shifts feeling jarring or random. The lyrical content is also worth praising specifically. Mike Ness has always been a storyteller more than just a punk vocalist. And on this album, he's doing a lot of reflecting on the past, on the people who aren't around anymore, on the lifestyle he used to live and the one he chose instead. There's a real sense of a man taking stock of his life, and that gives the album an emotional depth that goes beyond the surface level punk rock energy. The opening single, Born to Kill, is a strong choice to lead with. Harder, angrier, and more distorted than some of what follows. The lyrics reference classic punk rock touchstones, including a nod to Iggy and the Stooges. It announces their return with confidence, and Never Going Back Again is one of the album's best tracks. A stomping, galloping rhythm, a drum intro that grabs you immediately, and some of the most personal and vivid lyrics on the record, referencing zombies and the living dead as stand-ins for people consumed by addiction. It's a powerful piece of writing. Partners in Crime is another highlight, a catchy mid-tempo rocker with a little rockabilly flavor and a music video that does a great job of visually contextualizing the band's history. And the line, "You got 3 chords and the truth," is genuinely one of the best single lines on the album. That sums up Social Distortion's entire career philosophy in 7 words. Let's be fair about the criticisms, because no album is perfect, and this one has a few areas that don't fully land. My personal least favorite track is Crazy Dreamer, the country western collaboration with Lucinda Williams. And let me be clear, this is partly a personal preference issue. If you're a country fan, you may connect with a song in a way I didn't. The lyrics are well written, exploring themes of love, loneliness, and surviving in a cold world. Lucinda Williams is genuinely excellent artist, but the combination of piano, country instrumentation, and a more rockabilly than punk overall sound puts it at the far end of the spectrum from what I personally come to Social Distortion for. It's not a bad song, it's just not my cup of tea. The Wicked Game cover is a mixed bag. On the positive side, they do put their own stamp on it rather than simply recreating the Chris Isaak original. And hearing Mike Ness use some falsetto, which I didn't think we've heard from him before, or at least rarely, is genuinely interesting. But cover songs on studio albums always carry a slight risk of feeling like filler. And while this one avoids that trap mostly, it doesn't add a huge amount to the record either. It's a decent cover, and that's about where it lands. The middle section of the album also loses a little momentum compared to the front and back end. Tracks 6 through 9 are all solid songs, but they don't quite hit the heights of the opening run or the closing stretch. Nothing is bad, but there's a slight dip in memorability in that section that a stronger track placement might have avoided. And for some listeners, the overall familiarity of the album might be a sticking point. The Social Distortion are not reinventing themselves here. They're not experimenting or pushing into new territory. They're doing exactly what they've always done and doing it well. For longtime fans, that's probably a relief. For people hoping for a surprise after 15 years, it might feel like a safe choice. Let me walk you through all 11 tracks. Born to Kill opens with more distortion and more energy than a lot of what follows, a deliberate statement of intent. The lyrics reference Iggy and the Stooges and feel like a punk rock manifesto. There's a solid guitar solo as a lead single and album opener. It does exactly what it needs to do. No Way Out keeps the old school punk energy going, big guitars, another rocker, lyrics that touch on Mike's personal history with addiction, the ghosts of his past that never fully disappear even after decades of sobriety. Worth noting that this song was actually written during the white light, white heat, white trash era, so it's been sitting around for a long time before finding its home here. Tonight is where the cowpunk sound makes its first appearance. The country-influenced instrumentation mixes with the punk foundation of the classic Social Distortion way. Lyrics deal with the loneliness of life on the road, being far from home, away from the people you love. A relatable theme for any touring musician. And then there's Partners in Crime. This was one of the pre-release singles. Sounds like a strong mid-career Social Distortion track. Something that could have been maybe on the self-titled album. It's punky, a little rockabilly, it's catchy, and it has that great line about the 3 chords and the truth. The music video is worth watching too. Lots of retro imagery and photos of the band in the younger years. Crazy Dreamer featuring Lucinda Williams is the most country western moment on the album. Piano driven, more rockabilly than punk, and lyrically focused on love and loneliness. Well written, just not my personal preference in terms of sound. The Wicked Game cover follows, and as I mentioned, it's decent without being essential. The falsetto from Mike Ness is the most interesting moment and worth experiencing at least once. Walk Away, Don't Look Back brings into harder rocking punk sound back in its welcome return to form after the more country-leaning middle section. There's a cool call and response dynamic between the vocals and the guitar, and lyrically, it reads as either walking away from past troubles or leaving a toxic relationship, or maybe both simultaneously. Again, it's open to interpretation. Never Going Back Again is one of the album's best tracks. The drum and intro and the galloping rhythm grab you right away. The lyrics are some of the most vivid and personal on the record. Reference to zombies and the living dead as metaphors for people lost to addiction or genuinely striking imagery. This is one of the highlights of the whole album. Don't Keep Me Hanging On is a straightforward punk rocker with a little cowpunk and rockabilly flavor. It apparently originated during the white light, white heat, white trash sessions as well. Fits naturally into the flow of the album. It's a solid track about moving on from lost love. Over You brings back louder guitars and harder punk energy as the album heads towards its conclusion, which I appreciated. A lot of albums run out of steam towards the end, but this one picks up nicely. Lyrics are about getting over a breakup, and they're straightforward without being lazy. The Way Things Were closed the album on a rockabilly flavored note with a lot of nostalgia and reflection. People who are no longer around, life they lived, and music and the culture that shaped them. Music video reportedly features old footage and photos going back decades, including a young Mike Ness watching the Rolling Stones and the Beatles on television. As a closing track, it feels earned, a band looking back at everything they've been through and acknowledging it with gratitude rather than regret. Here's where I land. Born to Kill is a solid, well-rounded Social Distortion album. It's not trying to be more than it is, and it's actually one of its strengths. After 15 years away, after everything Mike Ness went through personally and medically, the band came back and maybe made exactly the kind of record the fans wanted. A little classic punk, a little cowpunk, a little country and roots rock, and a lot of authentic storytelling from one of the most genuine voices in the genre. I went back and listened to all the albums over the week, and to prepare for this review and the previous video I did, and honestly, they don't have a bad album in their catalog. Every record has something to offer. Born to Kill fits comfortably in that run. If I have to compare it to anything in the back catalog, I'd put it closest to the 1990 self-titled. That same balance of styles, same mix of harder punk moments and more melodic country-influenced tracks. My only real criticisms are minor. A couple of songs in the middle don't hit as hard as what surrounds them, and Crazy Dreamer isn't my style personally, but the highs in the album are genuinely high, and Mike Ness sounds like a man who has a lot left to say. So welcome back to Social Distortion. It was worth the wait. I'm giving Born to Kill by Social Distortion 8 out of 10. Go check out my full history video, which I just put out, I think it was yesterday, and that should be appearing on the screen right now. And thanks for watching. Please like the video, helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you're not already. I do rock and metal reviews, rankings, and more. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.